So if you're over 50 and you feel like you somehow missed the boat on building real wealth, I want you to think again. We're about to unpack a really powerful framework from the one and only Charlie Munger, and it proves why your best wealth-building years might actually still be ahead of you. Let's dive in.
Okay, it all starts with a story that might sound pretty familiar. Meet Robert. He's 54, and after decades of putting his family first, he looks at his savings and sees just $67,000. And, he felt like the game was over before it even really began for him. He'd pretty much resigned himself to a smaller future. But what he didn't realize was that the rules of the game were about to completely flip in his favor.
And this really gets to the heart of the problem, right? There's this lie that society sells us. It's this beautiful but totally devastating idea that the window for building real wealth just slams shut somewhere around your 45th birthday. And it works. It keeps people feeling passive, like they just have to accept it. But Munger's truth is that the game doesn't end, it just changes. The rules for someone over 50 are completely different, and honestly, in a lot of ways, they're way better.
So this brings us to the first big idea, the over 50 advantage. And it's all about completely reevaluating what your greatest asset really is. See, your age isn't a liability, it's leverage. And all that experience you've racked up, that's not some consolation prize. It is, without a doubt, the most valuable currency you have.
See, Munger's philosophy completely flips the script on what we think matters. For a younger person, the game is all about capital, right? Getting that big pile of cash. But here's the thing, that capital can get lost so easily. It's like wandering into a maze. The true guide, the real advantage, well, that's something else entirely. It's judgment. Think about it. Decades of life, of work, of making mistakes and paying for them. That builds a kind of judgment that you just can't download from an app or buy in a course. It has to be earned the hard way.
And this is what we call the late start advantage. I love this analogy. Think of an experienced doctor. A young intern, they just see a list of symptoms. But the veteran doctor, the one with 25 years under their belt, they walk in, take one look, and they see the answer. Why? Because they've seen the pattern 100 times before. And that's you. After decades in the world, you have that exact same superpower. It's pattern recognition for all the bad stuff. Bad investments, dead-end ideas, financial traps. Your real superpower isn't knowing what will work. It's knowing deep in your gut what won't.
Okay, so where do you point this superpower first? Well, step one isn't about chasing some huge win. It's about playing defense. Seriously, before you can start winning, you have to stop losing. And that means plugging the leaks in your financial ship. And Munger has this brilliant analogy that just perfectly illustrates the problem. He says, imagine a man trying to fill a barrel with water, but there's a hole in the bottom. He works so hard, right? He's pouring bucket after bucket in, but the barrel never fills. And he's so focused on pouring more water in that he never even thinks to look for the hole. For most of us, that hole, it's high-interest debt. And look, the math here is just brutal. It's not even a fair fight. You've got this tiny little sprout of a 9% market gain, and right next to it is this massive financial tornado of 24% credit card debt. Trying to outinvest that kind of debt is a guaranteed way to lose. It's like trying to climb up a ladder while someone is sawing it off from the bottom. Plugging that hole isn't just a good idea. It is the highest, fastest, most guaranteed return on investment you will ever make. Period. All right, the next leak is a sneaky one. It's often silent: lifestyle inflation. The solution? Munger calls it an expense surgery. Here's what you do. You pull up your last 12 months of bank statements, and you hunt for what I call old self decisions. The ghost expenses, the subscriptions you forgot about, the habits that are still running on autopilot. This is not about depriving yourself. It's about making surgical cuts to redirect cash that's just being wasted into your future. And the last leak, this might be the biggest one of all. It's your health. And I need you to stop thinking about this as just a personal issue. It is a financial one. Poor health doesn't just reduce your productive years. It can wipe out a lifetime of savings with terrifying speed. Seriously, treating your body like a crucial financial asset is probably the cheapest and most effective investment you can ever make.
Okay, so we've plugged the leaks, our foundation is secure. Now it's time to switch from defense to offense. Step 2 is all about building for growth. This is where we really start to accelerate.
Now, this concept is so important. It's called the compression window. Just look at this curve for a second. Building wealth is a lot like building a skyscraper. For years, you're digging the foundation, and it feels like nothing is happening. Then, all of a sudden, the whole thing starts to take shape and it shoots up. For most of us, almost all the visible growth happens in that final third of the journey. The takeaway here is absolutely critical. The decisions you make right now have a massive, outsized impact on where you land. The cost of waiting a year or two isn't small, it's exponential.
So, how do we pour fuel on this fire for that explosive growth? Simple. We monetize your single greatest asset, your decades of expertise. You are sitting on a rare gem of specialized knowledge, but chances are you're selling it wholesale to one company for a fixed salary. And that salary is probably way below what that expertise is actually worth on the open market.
Look, the market pays based on one simple thing. How hard are you to replace? And your 20-plus years of that pattern recognition we talked about, that is incredibly hard to replace. So by packaging that expertise up and selling it independently as a consultant or a freelancer, a lot of people can earn 2, even 3 times their old salary. And let's not forget Robert. He took his 22 years in logistics, turned it into a consulting business, and he replaced his entire old salary in just 18 months.
Okay, the next big milestone is what we call crossing the income diversification line. This is a huge mental and financial shift. It's where you stop trading your time directly for money and start building systems that generate income for you, even if it's just a few $100 a month from some dividend stocks or a small rental. The initial amount doesn't really matter. It's the structure that's a game changer, because that kind of income, it has no ceiling. It literally scales while you sleep.
Okay, finally, let's talk about the real scoreboard. Because we've gone through the how, but all of that is pretty meaningless without a really powerful why. What is this all actually for?
You know, most people just kind of drift along, aiming for this vague feeling of security. But you can't navigate to a feeling. You need a lighthouse, a destination. So I want you to define your finish line. Write down the exact monthly income that for you means freedom. Because a goal that has a number attached to it, that's a goal you can actually achieve.
And this brings us right back to Robert. At age 65, he hit his number. He did it. But he had this profound realization. The thing he had actually acquired wasn't the $1 million. It was the time that the money bought him. Time that was no longer mortgaged to a job he had to do or a debt he had to pay. It was just time. Time to be truly present with the people he loved. That is the real scoreboard.
You know, so many people over 50 are sitting in the exact same chair Robert was, just waiting for some kind of sign that it's not too late. Well, here's your sign. The ending to your story is not written yet. This framework isn't just theory. It's a series of decisions. And the people who win this game, they all start with just one. So the only question I have left for you is this. What is your one decision gonna be this week?